It's really no secret that Nissan and Infiniti in North America are in desperate need of a hit. I mean, right now, what's going on? Let's just remove Infiniti from the picture. Nissan is losing ground on vehicles that, and it's kind of strange in a way, and this is just my opinion, vehicles that they put massive efforts into generally don't do that well. Whereas products that are, as I usually put it, perfectly middle ground, just average in every respect, such as the Rogue and the Altima, and a little, to a lesser extent, the Qashqai and the Sentra, they usually do really, really well for the brand. It's a strange thing. It really is. And just, that brings me to the Leaf, which was an exception. Because the Leaf was groundbreaking, mind-blowing. It was an exceptionally, the vision that Nissan, let's just leave it at Nissan, had some 15 years ago at this point, into mass-producing electric vehicle that was affordable for the masses, that was actually daily drivable and gave you some kind of range, it was unbelievable. It was exceptional, and the car turned into a phenomenon essentially. So that was an exception to that rule, where when they're mediocre, they do well. That one was spectacular for what it was. If you think back 13 years, 12 years ago at this point. So keeping that in mind, the anticipation, this is like, well, no, it's not. Going from the 350Z to the 370Z to the Z. No, okay, never mind. The anticipation, the expectations for Nissan's eventual follow-up, their next EV product. I and I think auto journalists in general were expecting way more than what the 2023 Nissan Ariya has turned out to be. But in many respects, that's fine. Because, look, I'll try and summarize this for you slightly, the video, because you really probably don't want to watch the entire thing. But the efforts that they put into the exterior design have paid off. This is a unique looking, very attractive, special even, SUV. And it's even better on the inside. The efforts, once again, to make something so simple looking, I mean, you know that there was a lot of work put into it. But unfortunately, everything you can't see, everything that makes it an EV is mediocre. No, average. I'm sorry, I take that back. Not mediocre, average. But in this space, in the large, compact, mid-size electric SUV segment, that just, it cuts it now. But in 2 years from now, it's not going to cut it anymore, when the competition will have tripled, give or take. And furthermore, unfortunately, Nissan has priced this way out. I mean, I almost get the impression that it's a cash grab now, that because there's so much demand for EVs, they're charging at least $5,000 per trim, too much for what it is they are bringing to the table. And that is especially true when you compare it to the Koreans. I'll touch on that in a few moments. And in a way, to add insult to injury, the way they've packaged this thing is just, I don't recall a vehicle being so complex. I mean, it's almost simpler to work out an F-150 or a Silverado or a Ram 1500 with trims and specs. This has 2 batteries, 2 powertrain layouts, 4 or 5 trims, some without the plus, some with the plus. That has to do with the battery size. And some overlap. You get more equipment, but only front wheel drive, less equipment, all wheel drive. They've overcomplicated things unnecessary. Whoever was in fault and responsible for product planning for this one, I think they went way out of, they're out of whack, period. That's it. And this is Canada and US. This is not specifically to Canada. Anyhow, look, if I can save you some time, this is a an average EV, but that doesn't work. Very attractive, not bad to drive, but brings little to the table now in its inaugural year. And yes, I understand Nissan tried to launch this about over 2.5 years ago. The pandemic kind of screwed everybody's plans, but it did screw everybody's plans. Anyhow, in the following video, I'm going to do a walk around of this 2023 Nissan Ariya, and we're going to take it for a drive. I like it, but it's already old almost. Okay, so I realized that maybe I wasn't clear about, when Nissan puts in massive efforts behind products and they don't do well. Just think last generation Titan. XD, Cummins, everything. Well, on paper, it had all the right ingredients to do well, but we all know how that story ended. Okay, so I'm gonna keep walking around. Just soak it in, and you can ignore my words, and I'm gonna try and get through the pricing structure. I'm gonna be really honest with you. This is the third time I'm gonna try and do this. Hopefully I'll get it right this time. So in the US, to keep it simple, base Engage front-wheel drive, $43,190. Top trim all-wheel drive Platinum Plus, so plus the larger battery, $60,190. Okay, so Canada. Base trim Engage front-wheel drive, $52,998. With that, you get a heated steering wheel, heated front and rear seats, power center console, 12.3-inch touchscreen display, satellite radio, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, 19-inch wheels. It's well equipped, we'll give it that. Now, there's a Venture Plus that comes in after that. So because that's the Plus, it has a larger battery. So the basic battery is 66 kilowatt hours, the larger one is a 91. This is gross, not usable. So power goes up to 238 horsepower, same torque, 221. Okay. And then there's this one. This is the Evolve Plus, which is the top trim front-wheel drive model, and it retails for $64,998. So what you get, in this top trim model for that kind of money, you get Bose audio, power lift gate, heads-up display. It's kind of unfortunate you have to wait for $65,000 to get a power lift gate. And it's about $5,500 more than the Venture, where you do get a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. Where it gets messy, well, it's already messy, never mind, is that for $60,498, you get an Evolve, but without the Plus. So a smaller battery, but all-wheel drive. So for effectively $4,500, you get a lot more power and just not all the bells and whistles. I don't know why you can't get like a Venture Plus all-wheel drive, but then it would just get even more complicated. I don't know why Nissan is doing this. But look, as we're here in the front, it's kind of cool, the shield. It's like the evolution of Nissan's V-Motion shield grille business. It's very cool. I like the slim lights. The styling has absolutely grown on me. It doesn't have, well, it has a long wheelbase, but what throws it off is that it's got a lot of rear overhang. You have to agree with me. This is almost unusual nowadays to have that much dragging behind the rear wheels. But still, it's got a very, very sleek profile, which unfortunately affects trunk space, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And look, if you go all the way to the end to the Platinum Plus, it's $69,198. There's also a trim above that, which I think is the Premier, but I think that was just a launch edition. And it's only about $600 more, something like that. Okay, so let's move on in. So yeah, power hatch. You have to pay $65,000 to get the power hatch. And so 646 liters of trunk space. It's not so bad. I like, you can actually remove these full load floors and gain a lot of usable volume. I believe 646 is the max, because if you look at the actual height here, there isn't that much room, but it's a very usable trunk. Look, I'm gonna beat this pricing dog some more. See, the issue is, we can all agree that this will do battle with the Ioniq 5. So if you take an Ioniq 5, so this one is $64,998, right? If you take the Ioniq 5 all-wheel drive with the ultimate package, so absolutely everything you can get in an Ioniq 5, it's $65,000. In fact, it's $63,000. My bad. It's $2,000 less than this. The math doesn't add up. This is why I think this is, well, easily $5,000 too expensive, all trims, in fact. Okay, so let's continue the tour. Opening is actually quite good, to be honest, despite the sloping roof line. It's still very tall, so ingress and egress is quite nice. I mean, these are the backup baby seats. So they're a lot smaller than the other ones, but you still can't really squeeze anyone back there. But you get a sense here of the vastness, thanks to the long wheelbase. And look at the amount of space here too, just to climb in and out. It's quite nice. And here too, I was saying efforts on the design, so you kind of got an idea of how very attractive everything is, how there's significant work involved in this business. And the interior even more so. I mean, look at the different textures, surfaces, and stitchings, and different plastics, and touchy-feely parts, and the grills. I mean, you have to appreciate that. And it gets even nicer up front. Close that properly. The seats, suede, leather. It's really nice. It's beautiful. And there's your twin 12.3-inch display, and it's actually got a kink in it. And that's pretty impressive. It's wavy, but again, different color stitching. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I think maybe this is the best view. Look at the amount of space here. It's just insane. I mean, it's superb. And this is probably one of the things that it's cool at first, but you're gonna forget about it eventually because you just won't keep playing with it. But it's this power center console, which is standard. Oh, yeah, there you go, because it was all the way forward. I mean, it's neat and all, but once you set it, you forget it, right? And there's another thing that's kind of annoying too. I'll show it to you now. I mean, storage is not too bad, right? There's nothing spectacular going on here, but this little extra cushioning for the armrest, maybe if I get in, I can show it to you better. Probably not. I'll start it up. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, so I'm going to try and stay level here, but the armrest in the door is really, really low, uncomfortably low, and I'm just an average 5'10" guy. Whereas on this side, look how high this cushion is, or armrest. So you're actually leaning into the door when you're trying to be comfortably positioned behind the steering wheel. It's annoying as hell. Maybe you get used to it, maybe you don't, I don't know. I haven't in almost 6 days. So there's your display. I mean, it's nice. The graphics are actually kind of cool. They're kind of a faded, brushed look. I don't know how to describe it really, but it works really, really well. I can't find anything desperately wrong with all of it. And what more do you really need? I don't know. It's intuitive. Let's just put it that way. I always like that Nissan puts, the brightness buttons easily accessible. Funny, silly detail. But okay, so here's your shifter, your drive modes, and your e-step. Okay, it's related here. Okay, so I'm gonna focus on this first. These are your HVAC controls, which are beautiful. But right now, well, you're kind of lucky. You can't tell that there's greasy finger touches all around them, because the surface is so nice, so slick. And it's the first thing you see. I mean, it's been cleaned and cleaned again, and you'll have to clean it all the time, but it looks fantastic. Same with this. So your drive modes and your e-step and the shifter, cup holders obviously, nothing special there. I'll just show you the drive modes. Very straightforward. Sport, standard, eco. I've been driving in eco almost exclusively, as I tend to do. And then there's the e-step. You see that? So now it's not blue. Now it's blue, that means it's on. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few moments because I'm going on and on and on and on. But the sense of space, of comfort, of wellness in this cabin is amazing. And despite, and this will be my last point, I promise, despite the huge base of the A-pillar there, look at this beautiful opening. So visibility is actually quite nice. Okay, enough of that. Let's just go for a drive. Okay, so I guess now's as good time as that. I'm trying to head back home. I'm just going to start with the one pedal drive because I just left a neighborhood where I like to shoot my videos. This is what I meant by expectations for the next generation of Nissan EVs. It was supposed to take everything that the Leaf does and just do everything better. In many respects, it does a lot of things better, but because, in my opinion, one pedal drive is one of those two things that every EV should offer. The other one being when you sit in the car with the key, it recognizes you and turns on and is ready to go. I will lobby for that. One pedal drive, it's unfortunate. And there are only essentially 3 regen braking modes. You take the E pedal off, take the B off, and you're in drive. Yes, okay, so Eco is a little more aggressive, but it's not modes or levels as you would get, for example, in a Korean product with at least Ioniq 5 or straight ahead, with at least 5 modes that you can quickly access with paddles on the steering wheel. But with the drive modes, as I said, I mean, I've been in Eco exclusively, and I'm in standard, and I'm on the floor. And I guess if we can I'll go back to Eco. We can roll right into power here. So I'm focusing on the front-wheel drive model because I assume that I'll get to drive an all-wheel drive model in the future, maybe the fall or the winter, ideally, to experience the extra power. So 91 kilowatt hour battery, I touched on this, 238 HP from the front-mounted electric motor, and 221, just same thing right there. I mean, front-mounted. Most automakers figure that you can almost ask or require a premium when you put the engine in the rear versus the front. I mean, one automaker, I think, is switching from front to rear for the single motor layouts. And maybe Nissan will do the same thing in the next few years, who knows. Okay, I guess I'll just mention, if you go all-wheel drive, I think the base output is like 335 HP and 413 pound-feet of torque. It's a completely different game. In my opinion, that's the game you should play if you live in Canada. But yeah, so as I just did, I mean, I'm on the floor, and it's kind of weird to say, but performance with the single motor is kind of on par with what you would get in a typical average, petrol-powered mid-size SUV. So it's not the mind-blowing, yes, instant torque, yes, but it doesn't feel uber fast. And one of the issues with that is this thing weighs about 4,500 pounds. And take into consideration that that's without my 180 husky butt 180 pound butt in the driver's seat. And when you do move up to the dual motor setup, you're looking at almost 5,000 pounds. That's a lot of poundage. Obviously, range takes a hit. So let's just right there touch onto range. So when you take the Evolve Plus, it's the number 2 range queen in the Ariya's lineup with 465 estimated. The Venture Plus, which is a little bit lighter, gives you 490 estimated. And based on my observations and plugging this in, I have no reason to doubt that 465 is realistic. This would have been a good time to talk about the chassis, but it's coming right up. Yeah, but right now, I mean, full charge, I had it over 450 kilometers indicated as estimated range. I believe it. In the winter, 20% off at least. But that applies to all EVs. Anything over 400 is reasonable, in my mind, in the real world, where you and I live. So charging, 130 kilowatts max, which is fine, which is below, say, the Koreans and other automakers, but it's in the average, and that's essentially where the Ariya sits, as I've said. And which means that on a DC fast charger, you're looking at 40-ish minutes for a 10 to 80% charge. 7.2 kilowatt onboard charger, so overnight charge, you're all set, not a problem. But 7.2 kilowatts is also on the lower side, but that doesn't necessarily, you'll never really get home with only 10% and, have to take off a few hours later to go somewhere. Yeah, so chassis ride quality. The first thing that I noticed when I drove off in the Ariya was that I was bouncing around. I'll say that I didn't notice that very much in Tennessee when I drove the car, but the roads there are immaculate. And even now, after 6 days, I've kind of gotten used to it. I've adjusted. Maybe the extremely comfortable front seats are helping out. A very, very real possibility. But even so now, unless the road, it's like the dampers and the springs are don't want to give it up. They don't want to give you that extra quarter inch of travel to just level everything out. It's kind of unfortunate, but it's not a deal breaker. I have to admit, the Ariya feels like it knows what it's doing on the road. We just took a curve. The weight is always an issue. It wants to push you, off your line. But for normal driving, the steering is fine. The assistance is good. Brake pedal is better now than it was when I first drove it. Travel is a lot shorter, and responsiveness is better improved. And I suppose that's it. Much better, much improved. The issue is that this thing is overly complicated as far as the pricing and trim structure is concerned. And relatedly, it's just too expensive. This front-wheel drive model at $65,000 being $2,000 more expensive than all-wheel drive, totally loaded Ioniq 5 is unacceptable. That's the deal breaker, effectively. And there's no reason not to buy it, because this is a superb, beautiful place to hang out in, unless you're the driver, because you're always going to be, a little bit lopsided. It's very average. It is where I suppose Nissan wanted it to be. I think they could have done better, and as it evolves, maybe it will, powertrain wise, trim wise. But I chance a Korean. Never said I liked the Volkswagen ID4, so I'm not saying that I would buy it over this. I don't know about a Mach-E. I think it's on par with this. They're both very, very average overall. I take this over a Tesla Model Y. I don't know if I'm forgetting other EVs. I probably am, but the day is over now. So thank you for watching.